Ooh, another white boy with a podcast. Pronouns, Jim Bro. Another white boy with a podcast. You want to see the video? It went viral.
Hi Gains Gurus, and welcome to TMGP, the Muscle Growth Podcast, episode 18. I am your host, Roscoe, and today we are welcoming Dr. Michael Moeller onto the show. Dr. Moeller, known as Dr. Moe, is a naturopathic doctor and a leading expert in optimizing male hormones like testosterone for improved body composition, who has dedicated his career to helping men optimize their health and age gracefully. After receiving his bachelor's degree in pre-medical sciences from Southern Illinois University Carbondale in 2013, he went on to earn his doctorate in naturopathic medicine from Bastyr University California in 2017. The majority of Dr. Moeller's clinical practice focuses on testosterone optimization therapy, intravenous nutrient therapy, specialty lab testing, and he is passionate about using natural, evidence-based approaches to help men address issues like low libido, erectile dysfunction, muscle loss, and cognitive decline. In addition to his clinical work, Dr. Moeller is an accomplished researcher, writer, and educator. He has conceived, implemented, and completed multi-year doctoral research projects involving intensive historical investigation. Dr. Moeller also hosts his own podcast called The Michael Moeller Mentality, where he shares his expertise on men's health, hormones, and optimal aging. When he's not in the office, you can find Dr. Moeller in the gym, hiking in nature, or spending time with his family. He is known for his bold, passionate, and enthusiastic approach to helping his patients achieve their health goals. Whether you're dealing with joint issues, want to build muscle without heavy lifting, or simply optimizing your hormones, Dr. Moeller is an invaluable resource. In today's episode, we can look forward to insights from Dr. Moe related to naturopathic doctors and their practice of medicine, several bodybuilding shows during his undergrad, shortcomings of modern medicine including dealing with interstitial cystitis, inflammation and UTI symptoms, common symptoms of low T, the importance of lab work, safely doing TRT, minimum effective TRT dose, maximum non-deleterious test dose, estrogen, AIs, heart health, HCG, and other peptides, and TRT supplementation. Hey Gains Gurus, before we dive into today's episode, we have a special shout out to our sponsor, Heart and Mind SA. If you're looking for a delicious way to boost your workouts, their creatine gummies can be found on Takealot, and they are the perfect fit. They're not just effective, but also a tasty treat you can look forward to every day. So, fuel your gains with Heart and Mind SA, where your heart, mind, and muscles come together. If you're injured or in recovery, check out theinjuryconsultant.com and consider getting a free consultation to see whether I can help you heal, restore, and thrive. Now, let's get back to building muscle with science. Welcome, Dr. Moe, to the Muscle Growth Podcast, where we explore subjects related to muscle science and hypertrophy. I'm thrilled to have you join us for today's conversation. Let's jump right in and dig into some exciting topics together.
Cool. Yeah, I'm super glad to be here, Roscoe. It's a pleasure. I like talking all things men's health, and if muscle's got to be towards the top of that list, that's for sure.
Can you briefly introduce yourself and your journey into the world of hormones?
Sure. Yeah. Grew up in a small farm town in Southern Illinois and play, four-sport athlete, football, basketball, baseball, and track. And then as I got into college, I picked up weights and had a lot of fun with that. Started working at a GNC, got into supplementation. And when I was working there, a buddy of mine was running the Mr. SIU show. And he's like, hey, man, we got to get some people on the show. You want to jump on in? I was like, man, I don't want to do that. But jumped in, did my first show, fell in love with working out and bodybuilding. And then I got sick myself with something called interstitial cystitis, went through the broken medical care system, and then decided, hey, I'm going to become a doctor. And then I found out about naturopathic medicine. And if you know much about naturopathic medicine, it's really about biochemistry, physiology and figuring out what's going wrong. And so went to naturopathic medical school in San Diego, California at Bastyr University, and then fell in love with regen med. And, with my track record, fell in love with hormones, seeing really kind of what's going on there out there right now with men's and low testosterone and hormone, definitely suboptimal for a lot of people, and really saw it works. There's plenty of studies showing, testosterone and muscle growth, but obviously mental health, energy, and all that stuff. So yeah, I graduated in 2017. So for the past 6, 7, 8, what is that even? I can't even give my math anymore. 2024. That's basically what most of my practice is now, is hormone replacement therapy in men. So,
and where is your practice based?
So I have an office in both Carlsbad, California, and then also in Meridian, Idaho. So San Diego, SoCal, and then close to Boise and Idaho.
Okay. And how many doctors do you work with?
Right now, I have one other nurse practitioner. It's me and the nurse practitioner. I had we could talk about business headaches, like, starting up a podcast and the logistics that go with all that. I'm in, finding balance. I had a larger kind of infrastructure in Laguna Hills, and I just literally cut a bunch of fat last year. So it's just me and the nurse practitioner right now. So,
okay, cool. So you guys are running the show.
Yeah. And I have a medical doctor. So, naturopathic doctor term can be taken kind of weirdly. In the state of California, I'm licensed as a primary care doctor. Same thing in Idaho. So I can prescribe testosterone. I don't need supervision. My nurse practitioner does. So we do have, yes, a medical doctor that's also on with the company. And again, that just kind of depends on, the ND thing can be a little weird. Certain states we're not even regulated, meaning I can't get a license. And then other states I can do minor surgeries, prescribe controlled substances. That's a whole other conversation with, bureaucracy. At the end of the day, it's lobbying, and I got to show them that I have the sufficient education to participate in whatever type of medical modalities we're trying to do. So, for sure.
And we'll get to some of the bureaucracies and things later on in the show, I'm sure.
Cool.
So football, I'm assuming that's American football.
American. Sorry. Yeah.
Just to confirm.
What do they call it? Pig's head, or you guys have pig ball or something? It's not really a foot. You only kick on field goals. I've just heard, some, across the pond, people make fun of it. No, that's actually not football. That's the oval pig skin, Oh
yeah, no. I'm not sure what they call. I think we just call it American football here in South Africa. Yeah. But yeah, football here we call soccer.
Yeah.
So that's,
whatever.
Mind figure it out. That's fine. Yeah. So, GNC, how long were you there?
About probably a year and a half. And so this was 2011 to 2013. Yeah, about a year and a half. That was back in the bodybuilding.com days.
Yeah.
Yes, you were on the forums. Yeah, you had to go on the forums to learn things back then. And yeah, you really do. In a lot of different ways. For me, there's definitely some help with bro science. There's anecdotal evidence. There's things that have worked, and we don't understand how. But the reason I fell in love with my degree is we get tons of biochemistry and physiology at the graduate level. So it's not just like, hey, here's a stat and it lowers cholesterol. We learn about cholesterol synthesis, and then, oh yeah, red yeast rice. Well, that works in the same way that a statin works. And so I really fell in love with figuring out how the body works. If I put in a new drug right now, how does the pharmacology affect things? The difference in different aromatase inhibitors, different drugs that are modulating estrogen, or even with testosterone, half-lives. Those things are super important, especially if you're trying to modulate and optimize hormones. Just something as easy as you have testosterone and throw in HCG, right? You have two different half-lives there. How do they work endogenously versus exogenously? What's that's going to do for, side effects and a ton of other things. So, GNC helped with that because I just learned about supplements, pre-workout. I really like, how do you optimize, your workout at the end of the day? You want to build muscle? Sorry, if you don't have enough protein, you're just not going to build muscle. I don't know what else to tell you. There's no biohack in the world if you don't have enough amino acids. So, and then, look, creatine, beta-alanine, go down and then looking at especially in the supplement industry, clinical dosing. Oh, cool. I have this supplement that has 500 milligrams and it has caffeine and creatine. Well, okay. I definitely can feel that caffeine. So there's at least 200 to 300 milligrams, but that's telling me I have 200 milligrams of creatine. You and I probably know, that's nothing. That's enough that you put it on the thing for selling it, right? You want 3-5 grams at the end of the day.
At least.
Yeah. So, you start going down those rabbit holes, and then you get your bro science, but then trying to definitely put the pieces together, and then I don't want to say going my own way, but figuring out how all these things then kind of work together. So I enjoyed GNC because I had guys, when you're 22 and then the 18, oh, bro, how do I put on muscle? It's like, let's do it, bro. Let's walk around the store and we'll talk about it. And even back then, I was still, fish oil or probiotics, other CoQ10. There are other things besides the protein and the pre-workout, that are essential. Can you sleep? ZMA, right? Favorite supplement of mine. So that all definitely kickstarted things in the direction of definitely medicine and ultimately performance at the end of the day. So living our best lives.
For sure. Well, since you mentioned the supplement industry, let's do a very shallow dive into that, because I know we could probably talk about the supplement industry for a long time. So what are your kind of overarching thoughts on the supplement industry back when you were there as well as today?
Yeah, I mean, man, we could get into influencers, and it's like, it's rough because, right now we got, and I'll call him out. He's been calling it, like, I got Gary Brecka. I got all my patients coming in. Yep. I've been down the MTHFR pathway and SNPs and all that. And I get, I get where you have a good heart and you want to help people. But in almost all forms of even running a business, like I say this, hey, if your shoulder hurts and you come to me and I say, well, 1, I can give you fish oil. 2, I could do BPC 157. 3, I send you to PT, or 4, I say, hey, what about stem cells, right? Them stem cells are going to be 10 grand and I'm going to make $5,000. It's really hard to not be biased when money's involved. It's basically what I'm saying.
I get you.
So I think major things to be mindful of in the supplement industry is clinical dosing, right? You get this pre-workout, especially pre-workouts are the worst. It used to be all proprietary blend, right? It used to be 1 scoop, 500 milligrams, and here's 10 different things. I need, most of the clinical data on beta-alanine is like, 3 grams. So if I need 3 grams of beta-alanine, I need 5 grams of creatine, and the supplement has 500 milligrams. And that's when I just started making my own. I literally just going, you can buy them all bulk, and then I would just weigh them and because I wanted to make sure I was getting the actual dose. And, if they have caffeine and you want to work out at night, that can be rough. Like nowadays, man, there's so much caffeine in all those. And that's coming from a caffeine addict, but I need to, if I've had too much caffeine early in the day, I don't want to load up a bunch before bed, right? So I have my beta-alanine over there. I have my creatine over there. I have my alpha GPC over there. So I think my 2 cents for most people is 1, you got to be mindful of clinical dosing. 2 is how the company makes it and stores it. So shill real quick. I work with a company in the States. They're called Full Script, and everything that they bring on their website is third-party tested already. Like you have to pass a bunch of tests for them to carry it on their website. And they're big names like, Pure Encapsulation, Integrated Therapeutics, most kind of holistic or natural functional medicine doctors, the supplements that now sports is on there, now is a more popular sports one, versus, and I've bought stuff on Amazon, but if you're buying fish oil on Amazon, that fish oil could be sitting in outside Las Vegas, Nevada right now at 120 degrees. That's going to go rancid, and you have to worry, and I can buy supplements at a discounted price, cut it with rice powder, and then throw it on Amazon to compete. So, you got to be super mindful, trust the company, make sure that they're doing good testing on their stuff, and then get educated on the clinical dosing, and then figure out what you're trying to do. You know what I mean? Like even in the supplement world, people are like, well, this is good. Okay. Like, L-carnitine, alpha GPC, creatine, and caffeine. And you go, okay, well, what are you trying to do? And the other thing I see is a lot of overlapping, of maybe if you're trying to get more energy or fat loss, it's not like you can stack 10 different anti-inflammatories and you're 10 times less inflamed, right? Turmeric, boswellia, fish oil, like there's kind of a limiting step. And honestly, on my end, I'm a very much less is more. Most of the people that come to me, I'm like, which supplements do you think are actually doing something?
Yeah.
And not to say that there isn't clinical evidence, like with vitamin D, there's lots of correlative studies showing higher vitamin D disease prevention, not only for bones, but autoimmune disease and
higher testosterone.
Yeah. So, that's when I'm a little more nuanced on, but you go down this rabbit hole and I'm, and again, I've probably tried them all. You want to talk about, methylene blue, NAD, glutathione, L-carnitine, like these wide variety of, especially like with your mitochondrial health, I kind of think there's a limiting spot of like, you're trying to do 100 different things for mitochondria. It's like probably 80-20, one or two of them are going to, really help out your mitochondria. So I just say a more focused approach. When I had kids come in, let's just do everything. If they had the money. The other thing is you're spending you can easily spend $200-$300 a month on supplements.
Oh, easy.
So yeah. And so what's your bang for your buck? And now we have who's the other? Is it a Johnson or whatever? This guy that's all about
Brian Johnson.
Yes,
Brian Johnson. Yes,
him. And then before him was it Kurzweil that would take 300 supplements a day? Do you know that? I think Ray Kurzweil is a big guy on the Singularity. Same thing. He's like taking just bags and bags. And it's like, well, if L-carnitine's good and, but it doesn't have the acetyl group, maybe I should do both acetyl, L-carnitine, and L-carnitine. You're just kind of like, I guess, man, but I don't know, you're going from 99 percentile to 100. It's like, I don't know if that's worth it at the end of the day. Yeah.
I know Brian Johnson takes 100 pills every single day.
And I'm just like, what's being absorbed, and then are they counteracting each other? Real quick rant on this whole, if you're familiar with Gary Brett, the whole methylation SNP stuff, right? And so I think if you're actually interested in that, one of the best books is called Dirty Genes by Ben Lynch. And it's more it's like you have 1,000 people and you're trying to check on the strength of 10 of them. It's like, okay, now these 10, but like when you look at an MTHFR, you got 4 different SNPs, and then you have the MTARs, and then you have your cytochromes. Like, it's a large picture. Like, I did that back in like 2013, and I had 30, 40 pages of SNPs. And then trying to figure out if this one is downregulated, right? Like, that's the whole thing. Like, you take, tyrosine, and you turn that into dopamine and then adrenaline, right? And you have enzymes that speed that up, and you need cofactors, like your B vitamins. And so at the end of the day, how quickly you can activate and unactivate your B vitamins is important, don't get me wrong. But when you have all these different pathways, it gets super complex. So unless you want to sit down with like a geneticist, I don't see a whole lot of fruit of paying $600. And then ultimately you just take methylated B vitamins. I'm like, dude, just take B. That's one supplement I do think most people, it's a low hanging fruit. You'll piss out extra B12, B9, B6. And I think a lot of people have issues with focus, and those usually help with your choline and acetylcholine. So not medical advice, but that's usually one that I think people can take and actually feel better. And then you can measure your homocysteine, which is an inflammatory marker. So you can actually take this, do blood work. Do you feel better? And is there blood work showing that it's effective? Cool. Like, you get subjective. I'd use both subjective and objective data. So trying to find that balance of figuring out if this thing is doing something for you. Otherwise, you're just, having expensive urine. So
exactly. It's that 80-20 principle, like you mentioned, where you're trying to get the maximum result from the minimum effort, basically. So while we're on supplements, and tell me if it's going to take too long, but could you give your full stack, like what you take, and like this is obviously for you, and it's not medical advice, for interest's sake.
Yeah. So in the morning, I usually have, I play with the different things to increase acetylcholine. Okay. So for people who don't know, acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that's really important for focus. So it works really well. Most people, I do some caffeine in the morning. So you kind of have to bring that in. Caffeine is going to increase your serotonin and your dopamine. So choline, you can get it from eggs. It's probably the more popular in the yolk. That's why they tell you want to keep your yolk intact. But there's a couple different ways you can take these precursors. Alpha GPC is one. Choline CDP is one. You can take uridine diphosphate is blocks its breakdown like huperzine. And so I have all 4 of those and I rotate them. And so like alpha GPC, you want to do like 600 milligrams, choline CDP, 500 milligrams. So I'm usually taking something to help with my choline because I usually jump into work in the morning and then I'll have some coffee or some tea or I'll do energy drinks. Like I'm not, I'll do a Ghost or a Zoa Energy. I do have a supplement that has a lot of the amino acid precursors, like it has tryptophan and tyrosine. So that can help, right? Those are the building blocks of dopamine and serotonin. So I'm a big fan of nootropics. And then I have other forms of like methylene blue, I have NAD, I have dihexa, and I kind of rotate those. And like I haven't even used any this week. So some weeks I'll be like, if I'm feeling kind of lagging or my brain isn't really there. So it just kind of depends. And I've played with a lot of those. I have a liposomal vitamin C supplement that I like when I'm sick. And I throw, it actually has some phosphatidylcholine in it too, which is another form of choline. And then past that, bedtime, I rotate a ZMA supplement. Sometimes I take it, sometimes I don't, just kind of depends. One of the main ideas behind ZMA, zinc, magnesium, and B6 are required to turn tryptophan into serotonin, and then you get melatonin. So a lot of guys benefit from taking a ZMA supplement at night. Magnesium just helps with relaxation in general. Zinc is a slight actual aromatase inhibitor for people who don't know, which, maybe we can get into blocking estrogen later. And then B6 just seems like it kind of helps with that serotonin and kind of calmingness. So past that, I mean, off the top of my head, things that I really take consistently kind of move around. I've supplemented with DHEA. DHEA is a precursor to testosterone. It has good research in showing that it elevates testosterone in women. That's a whole maybe other can of worms. We could talk about DHEA and pregnenolone and if it's warranted to supplement or not. I think when I travel or I'm feeling a little bit sick, I'll take a little bit more of the DHEA. And then past that, my pre-workout supplements, which I rotate. I'll buy some cans every now and then. Like I'm not really worried too much about some of the fillers and colors. Like it's my pre-workout. I try and keep my caffeine under 300. So usually 200, 250 before the workout. I'm usually looking for 3 to 4 grams of beta alanine in there, 1,000 milligrams of tyrosine. What else do I really like in my pre-workout? Usually, again, it's good to throw in some more choline. Like the alpha GPC seems to help with nitric oxide as far as acetylcholine. Nitric oxide boosters, your citrulline, your arginine, arginine nitrate, an acetol, and what is that one? An arginine and acetol now. They have, a lot of different of these forms that boost your nitric oxide. I think that's the meat and potatoes, unless I'm forgetting something right now. And I've run through them all, and then I have some injectable NAD I do from time to time. I'm not a great responder to that. There are some people that do the NAD and respond really, really well, energized, mental clarity and all that. I don't. And so that's what I'm saying. It's kind of one of those subjective things. Like if you're going to spend $200-$300 on a bottle to inject it sub-Q, I'm like, I want it to work,
Gotta be worth it.
Yeah. And again, you can make arguments like right as you age, you lose NAD. NAD is super important for mitochondria to create energy. So it may be worth a lot of people, to kind of quote unquote, anti-age, I guess. Because you got strong mitochondria, you need mitochondria. They're the powerhouse of your cell. And if they're not, and that's why I like L-carnitine also, right? Pulls fatty acids in the cell. So also increases androgen receptor density. So that's a real low-hanging fruit for a lot of people. I think L-carnitine's gotten really popular in the TRT realm in the last 2 to 3 years.
Is that injectable L-carnitine?
Yeah, right. So the fear is you get more TMAO from orally ingesting L-carnitine, which is kind of I think it's with your bacteria that gets this fermentating process, and this TMAO is inflammatory and has been linked to cardiovascular disease. So a lot of people are like trying to bypass that by just doing an IM, which, anytime you do anything sub-Q or IM, you can do way less, right? You have, anytime you eat something, half of it, it goes straight to your liver. Your liver's probably going to get rid of half of that. So you can do less when you inject something subcutaneously or IM. Man, L-carnitine stings though, man. Like there's certain things like that hurt. Vitamin C, that's absorbic acid. Like I've done sub-Q IM of that. It's acid that you're injecting in your glute. Don't feel great, man. And again, you're looking at a price difference of, depending on where you're getting that L-carnitine from. If underground, maybe $50, but if you're getting it from a legit doctor, you're looking at $150 for 30 grams, right? So people will inject 500 milligrams, right? Where, you can get a bottle from now for like, I have a 3 gram per tablespoon Now Sports that was like $30 or $40, So it depends. Like, and then you can measure your labs. Like, do you have high TMAO? Like, is that even something you need to worry about? Do you need to spend 5 times as much? And then do you need to inject it?
Yeah.
Right. Because every time you're injecting, you are increasing your chance for cellulitis, like 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000, right? You have staph and strep on your arm. So every time you inject, you're pushing that bacteria under your skin, one time out of a million, right? You want to see horror stories, look at the lateral quad testosterone injection has been completely demonized. My opinion, it's a lot of underground gear and some bodybuilding bros who, reusing needles. You should always alcohol the top of the vial. You alcohol where you're going to inject, get the bacteria out of the way, and then you're fine. But, they've gotten to the point where the cellulitis was so bad, it basically went gangrene, right? You're basically, the bacteria gets in there and it festers and then just starts eating your muscle up. So it's something to consider if you want to do injecting. Is like, there's a slight chance versus like, I don't, drinking a little bit of L-carnitine. I don't, there may be a bellyache every now and then, but so risk versus reward.
As always.
Yeah. Did I miss any supplements? Anything in particular?
I think we talked about creatine before. Do you take creatine?
Yeah, it depends. Creatine is one that I'm bad at, that I kind of do rotate, and it kind of depends on where I'm at in my life. If I'm in like a kind of a bulking, or I'm like, I don't feel like I notice a whole lot of cognitive improvement from like, if I do L-carnitine, I feel pretty noticeable cognitive improvement. I'm a bad doctor because I do think of all the supplements, creatine is probably the most well-researched. It's the most cost-effective. It's probably one of the most low-hanging fruit. With that being said, I also eat a lot of red meat. Usually probably a pound a day. At least, pound a day might be right on at least half a pound a day. I almost always eat some beef, so I'm probably getting a gram or two there. It'd probably be better if I would do that, 5 to 10 grams a day. What about you? You're a creatiner?
Yeah, definitely. And actually recently started on the creatine gummies. So just take 2 gummies a day, and I get like, I think
I should do that.
6 grams from 2 gummies. I think it's 3 grams a gummy. So yeah.
I've seen them, man. I've seen those, I think, on TikTok and stuff or whatever.
Yeah,
people talking about it, right?
Yeah,
because I do magnesium gummies too, and they taste good by Calm. I try and do those 1 or 2 of those before bed, sometimes with my ZMA.
Yeah, actually, shout out to Heart and Mind SA, the creatine gummy sponsor for the show, actually.
All right, man. I'll have to hook me up and send me a bottle.
I must. We'll organize something. Let's segue to the broken medical care system that got you into all this right in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, so I talked a little bit about I was in college and undergrad, not eating well, and we're not educated. At least here in the States, you get the food guide pyramid used to be super popular, and again, I didn't know any better. Like we never had health class.
What were you studying at that stage?
I was a history major. And I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. I actually took ancient Greek philosophy, human skeletal anatomy, and organic chemistry. Like, I was like, okay, let me look at some of these. Like, dude, I graduated undergrad. My undergraduate degree in the States, you need usually about 120 credit hours. I graduated with 160, just because I was just eating everything up and trying to. In my opinion, that's what college should be. You should learn a little bit about everything. Like, the issue is people get so hyper-focused. So I was a history major, and then I was like, man, I don't need to get too political, but in the States, man, it's history it's political. It's a Republican versus Democrat, like white, evil people versus good people. But then the victor writes the book, and it's like, it's kind of contradicts itself, because if the good person, like, I won't even get into that, but that was, 2011, 2012. And so I was like, man, I don't want to teach history, because I don't even like the way we're taught the Civil War, the way we're taught. There's a lot of different topics I could get into that I think are more nuanced. And I'm not saying I have the right answer, but you look at, in the States, September 11th, okay, cool, let's go invade Iraq. I'm like, I don't think that has anything to do, but you know what I mean? A lot of people would say something like that, like, oh, Civil War, slavery. It's like, well, that was a big political issue at the time, but there's way more nuance to that. People want a short, cut and dry issue. So I get into health ed, and I got sick, and then that's when I really kind of looked at this. I'm like, man, 12 servings of grain a day? Like, I know as a bodybuilder, I'm only taking those if I need them. Like, if I can get my calories from sweet potatoes, if I can get my calories from something a little more nutrient dense, like bread that's just empty calories at the end of the day. Like, not saying that I didn't have a pizza, my refeed dinner, but it tastes great. I love carbs. I'm a big cinnamon roll guy. That's like my thing, man. Cinnamon rolls, like, good juicy cinnamon roll after a leg workout, I'm in. But then I just kind of looked at all of it, and I'm like, huh. And I grew up on a farm, so I get like they subsidize the corn, the wheat, and the soy. And I'm like, oh, so they're just getting us to mass produce this so that, Cheetos and Doritos and Tombstone Pizza and Coca-Cola are cheaper. Like, and then they try and sell us that, So I, was already kind of knowledgeable of that. And then I had what's called, I basically woke up and I had discharge out of my urethra, my penis, right? So I had like basically I go into urgent care and like, yeah, you have an STD, which was not really possible. I'm like, I don't know how this happened, but, and then I was like, I assume it was just like a urinary tract infection or something. And they're like, no, that's not possible. You're a guy. Those are dang near impossible to get. And I'm like, and then they gave me the whole, like, you need to be more careful being sexually and all this stuff. And so whatever. I get a big antibiotic shot, and that's how they do it in the States. Like, if they think you have an STD, they just treat you for it, and they tell you have it. And I just started seeing a girl too. I'm like, one of these things like, oh, how do I tell her? Like. So, anyways, my I get the shot, I leave, and then a week later, my symptoms come back. And so I call them up, and I'm like, hey, this thing's happening again. Like, oh yeah, when we did your blood test, you were negative for all your STDs. You don't have any STDs. I was like, were you guys going to tell me? I was walking around feeling like, I had, and it would have been, for those who don't know, chlamydia and gonorrhea, which unfortunately in the States is very much like a cold anymore. Like, oh yeah, here's gonorrhea, here's antibiotics, like, you're fine. See you later. And they're like, oh yeah, maybe you do have a what do you call it? UTI. Yeah. So I come back in, more antibiotics. I'm better for a little bit. I leave. Symptoms come back. They go, we don't know. We're going to put you on more antibiotics, and then you have to wait till you can see a urologist. More antibiotics, wait a month, see the urologist. Oh yeah, you have what's called prostatitis. Which again, now that I know, itis just means inflammation. Okay, my prostate is inflamed. That's all that means, right? Prostatitis. Your prostate is, I'm like, all right, so now what? Oh, more antibiotics. Okay, so give me more antibiotics. All right, I'm gone for a month. Symptoms, come back. Oh, no, you have chronic prostatitis. I'm like, okay, that just means longer, right? You know what I mean? Like, you start looking at these words. You're like, wait, okay, and so I had prostatitis. Now I have chronic prostatitis. Just means I've had it longer. Cool. More antibiotics. Comes away, comes back. And they're like, you know what? We're going to do a cystoscopy. So they take a camera. They sedate me and take a camera. And as I'm waking up on these meds, the doctor's like, son, you have an improper lining of your bladder. We're going to give you some more antibiotics. Okay. And like I said, I'm like, dude, these guys, I don't feel like having.
I don't know what's up.
Yeah. I don't want another camera up my penis again. So I went home and I started researching and I said, okay, well, you can look at what things inflame your bladder, right? Artificial dyes and colors, pesticides, herbicides, gluten, wheat, and dairy. Like, a lot of these things can irritate it. So I juice fast, which I don't really recommend as much anymore. Hit the sauna, I did some fenugreek. I think I did, I did milk thistle, dandelion root. A lot of guys in bodybuilding and working out, milk thistle is great for your liver. Dandelion root's a diuretic, so it helps your kidneys. So I kind of upregulated my detox, cut out a lot of the junk, and I got better.
Crazy.
Hey, could have been that last round of antibiotics. Could have been. But I got better, and then I'm like, you know what? I didn't enjoy the process, but I have a passion for, kind of figuring that out.
But you fixed yourself.
Yeah. So then I'm like, well, we'll be a doctor. And then I was like, I kind of looked at the different philosophies. You have in the States, medical doctors are mostly primary care. Hey, here's this, like, here's your pill. And I'm not here to rip. I have lots of good MD friends. It's just the way our insurance system is set up. Like, hey, you got a headache and you go into the doctor. He's got 10 minutes. He can't ask you about your diet. He can't ask you, like, are you a painter? He can't ask you, like, did you hit your head? Are you, maybe it's a combination of this new med you were put on. They don't have time. Like, here's a med. See you later. Like, that's just the way our system is set up here.
That's crazy.
Versus me, like, well, and I get it. It's McDonald's for medicine. Yeah. You got to see, and the thing is, and I know this now being on my end, like, you have to see that many people to make money. If you get, if you're making $50 a person, you got to pay that doctor $200-300K a year. You got a front desk, get malpractice. You got to pay the front desk. It's like, it's expensive. Yeah. So, yeah, man. So I was like, man, I don't want to be an MD. That's kind of the guys who weren't in the position to give me the most optimal care. And again, I know great MDs out there. And then I looked at the philosophy of an osteopathic doctor, and I got so excited. I remember I was like, Mom, I found about osteopaths. They're way kind of more natural, blah, blah. She's like, you've been seeing it. And again, I had a pretty good primary care doctor, but it was still, he was a DO who basically, in the States, a lot of the DOs are mostly like MDs now. They've kind of fallen into the same, like, they take insurance, they have to play that game. And then I looked at chiropractic, and then I looked at acupuncturist, and then I found out my degree, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can prescribe medications, and I can also learn all these herbs, and I can learn about supplements, and I can learn, I even learned how to adjust. So I learned a lot of the stuff the chiros do. Physical medicine, we learned how to use ultrasound machines, red light therapies, and all that. I was like,
that sounds
great.
It does.
Yeah, and it's in San Diego. So I'm like, heck yeah, I'll go figure out what this is about. The issue is, like, it's harder to make a living, right? I can't just get out of school and then go to the hospital and make $150-200K a year. Like, I have to charge, $200-300 for half an hour to an hour of the time, and it can be frustrating because there's a little bit of a pay gap there. Like, it's only certain people can really afford that. So it's definitely a different game.
Sure.
As an ND versus an MD or a DO.
So DO?
What's that?
What's the DO?
It stands for osteopathic doctor.
Okay.
So osteobone. And this is, we'll get into we talked a little bit about the Flexner report. So in the early, like, I think it was like 1910, 1920s, they kind of looked at all the medical people in the United States, and this guy's name was Flexner. He was paid by Carnegie and Rockefeller, big oil, big steel. And they went around the United States and basically said, hey, if you're not a medical doctor, you're not really a doctor. They shut down like 90% of the medical schools. And then they started funding all the curriculum at, Harvard and Stanford and stuff. And the bottlenecked everything. And so the MDs became like the primary person who became a doctor. And then everyone else was kind of a quack. And then they kind of had to earn their reputation back.
Sure.
And, and again, if you look like, if you watch some, Wild West movies, you have like a barber or you have a dentist, and your hometown, they just did everything. You know what I mean? Like, if you had a barber and you had a cut, he'd stitch you. You dentist, like you had kind of like a healthcare person that did everything. They had herbs, they probably had some drugs, they probably had a little bit of everything. And you can, a lot of the MDs will say, well, that was great. We got rid of all the quackery. We got rid of all the dysregulations. And look, there's, I'm looking at everything from both sides. I get it. There's plenty of snake oil salesmen. Like, I'm in this field, and I've always, I've learned plenty of BS. Don't get me wrong. Even supplements, the detox tea, you got the girl with 5 million followers, and she just shows her butt the whole time, and she sells like green tea. It's like, she didn't get her butt from the green tea.
She'll tell you she did.
Yeah. how many guys in the fitness industry are like juiced to the gills and they're like, this is the one bicep workout. It's like, dude, that's 500 milligrams of tren a week, dude. That's not your bicep curl routine. Like at least that is one thing I like, that a lot of the more recent influencers are coming out like, look, dude, I'm on gear. Like you're not getting like this from my whey protein. So
For sure. No, I definitely appreciate the transparency from the new wave of influencers. And I think it's great that we're moving in that direction.
yeah, no, I think truth ultimately is what's going to set everyone free. I get it. There's issues with that, with regulations, because, technically, like, it's funny. I've had some experiences with psychedelics and, them being kind of illegal and then talking about doing it. It's like, I'm kind of admitting to doing things illegal. You know what I mean? Like if you're, Joe Rogan did it. So I was like, well, if Joe Rogan's talking about smoking DMT and got away, then we're good. But, in the States, testosterone is a controlled substance, right? So that's, that could be jail time. You could get hit with major fines, which I think is absolutely asinine, my opinion. 4,000 people a year die of Tylenol overdose. You know how many die of testosterone overdose?
Very few.
I haven't heard of one. But that's a controlled substance because it's dangerous, right? Testosterone is dangerous. But Tylenol, over the counter, you drink it, it'd kill you.
Sure. Nah, it's a weird system you got there in the States.
Yeah. There isn't, the issue is I don't really think there is a perfect one. I grew up again during the ephedra era where dosing of ephedra, 10, 25 milligrams. And there was a kid from a high school, was a couple years older than me. I think he took 300 or 400 milligrams and he basically blew up his heart. Ultimately that's a beta 2 agonist. So, at that high of a dose, that was back in the hydroxycut days and before they made it. And then they're like, no, we're banning ephedra, which sucks because in Chinese medicine, ephedra is a great herb for treating lung issues. Like that was actually kind of one of my go-to. If I ever have a cough or I'm not feeling well, number one, it gives you energy, but then two, it vasodilates your lungs. So it really helps with preventing like mucus buildup and stuff, because in lung issues, it's a negative feedback loop that you get mucus buildup and then you get inflammation and then you're having it gets more and more worse ultimately. So vasodilating your lungs when you have lung issues is super helpful. Like in COVID. Oh man, sorry I said the word. So, yeah, I liked it, but I get now it's like super regulated. It's illegal, I think, completely. You can get some of the Pseudoephedra over the counter. I think Broncaid you can still get too.
Okay.
So ECA stack was real popular too when I was first getting into bodybuilders, right? Ephedra, caffeine, aspirin.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. All three of those that worked. I tried it.
So you mentioned, is that the Mr. SIU? What does that stand for?
My college was Southern Illinois University, so Carbondale, and they did just a bodybuilding at the college. So got second.
Well done. Run up.
It's all right. Yeah, and then I did three. I signed up for 3. I did 2 more shows after that. That was when physique became really big, right? 2012, 2013. And that was actually my favorite time. Actually, for me growing up, I really liked, did you ever get in Greg Plitt, right? Like that guy, he had a physique that I really, really admired. I was never about getting huge, but I just kind of liked the aesthetics. And that's why I really liked physique there for the first couple of years, 2-3 years. And then it just, those guys are ginormous now, right? They're all like 5'8", 240 or whatever. I'm like, to me, it's just like, what is kind of like a peak physique look that you may even be able to pull off. I was natural, like in all of my stuff. Like I touched Clomid at, I think 28, if you want to say that's breaking my, taking my Natty V card. So I was natural. And I think there's a certain aesthetic that most people now, you can look at a guy and be like, oh, okay. And again, there's nothing against that. Like I'm on testosterone now, I'm not ripping on it, but just from an aesthetic standpoint of like, what is beautiful, from an artistic standpoint, I was more about that first like 3 to 4 years of physique, where now it's like, they're just smaller bodybuilders, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But to each their own.
The natural guys can't compete with the enhanced guys anymore. Not actually. The only one, yeah.
No, there's no, and I wonder how much of the guys that claim, like Michael Hearn,
saying it is like it's actually it hurts to think that these people think that we believe, like Liver King. It was like either like, and people would argue about it, and they'd argue for them and say that we just don't train hard enough and we don't eat bull balls. And it's like, just like naive, unfortunately. A lot of people are. And it's not just the influencers, it's professional sportsmen as well. Like in my opinion, most sports, I think it's pretty rampant. You can't be the best in the world if you're not doing what the best in the world do. It's like they work, and if you want to be the best, like you got to do what the best do.
Amen. And it's funny, as someone who's been on both sides of the fence, like I said, I started taking Clomid at 28, which I don't recommend. Maybe we'll chat about that. But I had a 500-pound deadlift. I had a 335 bench. My hang cleans were, 250. I wasn't strong. That's decent numbers for most people in their life. And I hit that around 22, 23. And it was just a slow decline from that until 20, over 5 years. I kept training hard, but it's hard to just continue. Like at some point, your body is just like, look, I could keep eating more. And then you have your natural decline of testosterone. You're just not. And that's to me is when it really started to become obvious, when I was still eating really well, working out. I knew what it was like to get big and strong. And I know the difference between when I was 22 and 28, let alone 35, 40. So when I'm like, I see a dude walking around who's 55 and he's like 6% body fat and has 20-inch arms, I'm like, and good for him. I know he's on the sauce and he's full of it. If he tells me, he's like, nah, I eat bull testicles. I'm like, whatever helps you sleep at night, man. Like, I'm not, I think we're at that point now in society where maybe it used to be something that was very stigmatized. I think growing up in that baseball era, steroids, and now I'm like, you know what? I think most people are like, live your life, man. If you at 55 having 20-inch arms is something that's super important for you, cool. I ain't gonna hate on it. The issue that you can have is then if you're making YouTube videos and you're selling protein powders, and you got a 23-year-old kid who's like,
I'm gonna look like that.
And I remember, did you Bowflex?
Nah.
Do you know this? This used to be on late night infomercials, and it was basically like one of those all-in-one machines that you could hook up, and dude, they had a guy on there was like 6'2", 240 peel.
Like Arnold.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm like, wow, I want to look like that guy. I need to get a Bowflex. Like, that guy's not using a Bowflex. He's going to the gym, and he's sauced out of his mind. It's like,
it's crazy. It's crazy. But like we said, it's becoming right. And I think we briefly mentioned in our little preview talk about the enhanced games. And what are your thoughts on that for next year?
Yeah, I'm all about. Like I told you, I grew up outside St. Louis, so we had in 1998 we had the Mark McGwire versus Sammy Sosa. They were chasing the home run record, right? And that was like all the rage. I mean, to me, I think that really brought baseball back. Lance Armstrong, that's it brings people, it brings them some interest in it. So I think as long as the rules are clear, I'm actually more for probably bringing more transparency and bringing you could put some rules in place. Like what? Yeah, like, hey, testosterone's fine. This is fine. Like, and then maybe they do what they want, because I've talked about this. I've had some military guys come to me, and if it were up to me, like, I not only would most of our military all be on testosterone, but also I think the future will probably be something like low doses of oxandrolone and androlone with it. I think the same thing for surgery. Like, you're a 55-year-old guy and you're about to go into back surgery, like, they should put you on testosterone and some like, not medical advice, but we know, like, people get hurt. Like, it's funny. I had a guy reach out to me who was using things, and I told him, don't use any things. But he's like, yeah, I'm going to come off my stuff because I hurt myself. And I'm like, dude, all those things that you are on are really, really, for regeneration, right? Like, those things are going to be more better. He's like, yeah, I'm coming off cycle because I'm hurt. I'm like, you'll recover way faster. Not that you should stop, because all those things are very, very dangerous and illegal. But in a world that they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you want to talk about the enhanced games, you want to talk about sports, it's like, what's the point? that's where you get into philosophical debate of like MMA. You're there to watch two people beat each other up. Who cares what they do? Like, as long as they're not using weapons. But the whole point is like, what is the optimal physical condition?
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Sure.
And that, and the other issue I'll bring up is this, and I've gotten issues with this before, right? Caffeine, right, is technically an insecticide, and it's meant to kill insects that eat it. And it blocks the adenosine receptor, which in bugs they die, right? In humans, it's such a low dose that it actually, number one, it blocks the receptor that basically tells us to be sleepy, but then also it has a paradoxical reaction that then we release endorphins to fight it, right? And they've used this, like glutathione kind of has that, like you can induce high amounts of damage and then your body upregulates glutathione production to regenerate more. So my issue with this becomes, with the Natty Maxis, go out in nature and find me 5 pounds or 5 grams of creatine anywhere.
Right.
Like you're gonna have to take the beef and you have to synthesize it out. So where does that line of like, well, we'll allow you to do high doses of vitamin C, IV ozone therapy. You can do high doses. I love it. It makes me feel great. But that's not natural. Like but it is, it's just oxygen.
Creatine's not natural either. Like it's like you said, you have to make it in a lab. And
so that's the big issue is like, what I don't like, and this is the things that have become scrutinized right now are the peptides, right? These peptides are coming under scrutiny, which ones are legal and not. Like DPC 157 is found naturally in our gut lining. Can I use that? For instance, thyroid's another one, but when you do eat, you can eat things and a lot of times your stomach will denature them, but you can get granular thyroid, right? Bovine thyroid. So people use Nature-Throid or MP thyroid. These are created by animals and then you take them. You're taking thyroid from another animal. That's hormone replacement. And then the other issue becomes like, okay, what if I lost my testicles when I was 7 in a biking accident? Like, can I be on hormone replacement therapy then?
To hear the answer to this question, you're going to have to tune in again for the next episode of the Muscle Growth Podcast. Goodbye, Gains Gurus. Thank you for listening and see you on the next episode of TMGP.